English 101. This is our final video of the year. This video is covering argumentative synthesis, which is the format and genre for our multimedia project. Our subtitle here is Writing to Combine, because argumentative synthesis deals with combining or merging two ideas. Now, when you usually think about the word synthesis, maybe the science disciplines come to mind a little bit more than the English ones. In science disciplines, synthesis is when you take two different properties or elements and combine them together to create something new, but something that still retains some of the properties of the original things that were combined. So when it comes to English, you're not necessarily combining things that are physical like elements, but things that are more figurative, more like ideas. So there's a lot of similarities between the two, and we'll see exactly what doing synthesis in English entails. So let's get started. If you look at this is our map of the class, and we've about almost completed it. We've gone from reflective to analytical for Essay 1, analytical to expository for Essay 2, expository to argumentative for Essay 3. And now we're going to stay in the argumentative arm multimedia project, but we're going to be moving from the persuasive branch, as you see right here, to the branch that deals more with synthesis. Something important to consider, though, is doing synthesis is going to require components from all three of the previous assignments. So, what is it when we do argumentative synthesis? Well, our purpose, the why and the how of the multimedia project is to synthesize. What exactly are we synthesizing? We're synthesizing a problem, issue, or perspective that's addressed by two texts. And remember, some of you I've conferenced with, some of you I haven't yet. Those two texts are something that you want to pick out before the conference, and you want to begin thinking before the conference about what a shared problem, an issue, or perspective that those two texts discuss. Our audience this time is going to just be an academic audience. It isn't necessarily going to be for or against, but we're going to have an audience that's going to expect us to adhere to academic standards. To kind of skip back for a second, the goal of this class is to learn or is to develop a working definition and idea of academic writing enough to where you can do it in different settings. Now, anytime you write academically, you're writing for an academic audience. So, to be able to do academic writing effectively, you have to understand the standards and expectations that an academic audience has. So, that being our audience, let's move forward and talk about how we do synthesis. So, the first step on how we synthesize when it comes to English is first identifying a subject and multiple sources that present varying perspectives on that subject. So, maybe you've picked out two of our readings that were paired in reader response. Maybe you picked out two that weren't in our reader response that you've gone out and found on your own. So, what you want to do after those readings is make sure to come up with something that is a shared problem, issue, or perspective between the two texts. All right? If you look here at our flowchart, certainly two texts are going to inform what the problem, issue, or perspective is. However, you're also going to use some other outside research on that topic. So, first and foremost, your texts are going to kind of steer this project. They're going to kind of determine what problem, issue, or perspective you have. So, after you've determined that, then you can kind of go about doing research and finding some other sources. We want to draft a thesis that states the subject, the shared problem, issue, or perspective, your position, which is a solution to that problem or a new perspective, and some reasoning to the why of that solution or that new perspective. Again, the thesis is going to be what you want to be first and foremost in your multimedia project. The second step, we need to contrast and compare our sources. And usually you may hear that compare and contrast, but I flipped it around because when we synthesize, when we're trying to create something out of two things, we're going to want to create it based upon like properties or similarities. So that's why we want to kind of end and build toward comparisons. I presented a table here where if you look at the leftmost column, you'll notice it says ideas. So when you read your text, you're going to want to maybe come up with 3 or 4 shared ideas between not only your two texts, but your outside research as well. Over here in the columns to the right, I've put something that I've put source 1, which is a focal text that you're choosing, source 2, another focal text that you're choosing, and source 3 and 4, which are research. In these columns, you're going to want to put what each source says about each shared idea. Some sources may not come out and explicitly say something about a particular idea. However, based upon what they say, you'll want to infer what they might say about that idea based upon the information given and the tone of the source. So once you have 3 or 4 ideas, you want to kind of go through and think about what each source says about those different ideas. Particularly give more attention to your two focus texts and be sure to build toward comparison. So what do we do with this grid? What do we do with this layout of ideas and which sources are, and what sources are saying what about these different ideas? Well, when we conclude, we want to offer a synthesis of ideas. So, for example, kind of going back to our original chart, say our text, source one of our chosen texts, talks about idea A, idea B, and idea C. Well, also source 2 additionally talks about idea B and idea C. So, idea B and idea C are both shared between those two sources, which means they may be pretty integral to our synthesis. Let's say our research source shares idea A and idea C, and research 4 source shares idea C and idea D. So, now that you have this layout, you want to think, okay, which ideas appear the most? Obviously, idea C appears the most, so that idea might be the most relevant to our synthesis. So in your conclusion, you'll want to discuss what idea appears the most, which is what most sources have in common. Idea A and idea B both appear twice, so that means you're going to want to add those two as well, albeit in a lesser capacity than idea C. Idea D is only discussed by source 4, so it's okay to leave that one out. Again, you want to emphasize the ones that most sources agree upon. And again, as it says down here, you want to emphasize what your two texts are saying. So if it came down between whether you're going to emphasize idea B or idea A more, you'd want to pick B because both of your texts, which are the focus of the project, mention it. So if you had to kind of rank these in terms of relevance to your synthesis, C would be first, B would be second, A would be third, and last would be D. So, what do we take from Essay 3 and what's new to this? Well, from Essay 3, we're going to have a subject that we take a position on, and that position has to be supported by evidence. And when it comes to that subject, you're going to have to understand the context surrounding the problem, issue, or perspective as a means of establishing credibility. With any academic assignment for an academic audience, you're going to want to make sure that you know enough about the subject to sound credible to talk about it. And you're going to be presenting a call to action through your synthesis. Your synthesis is going to be, what's a solution to this problem? How can we act on this problem? What's a new perspective that you can employ or have in your thought process? Here's what's new. This time we're not arguing a position against others, but we're going to argue for a position that's shared by all sides, kind of like a compromise. We're going to be combining the ideas of multiple perspectives, also like a compromise. And then we're going to be emphasizing positions that are gained through research rather than one that was previously held. When you're going into this project, sure, you're going to know what similar issue, problem, or perspective that your texts are talking about, but you're not necessarily going to be sure what the solution is or what the new perspective is. So through not just reading those texts critically, but doing research, you're going to come up with a new idea or a synthesis that wasn't already there before that solves the problem or presents a new perspective. It definitely is going to take some creative problem solving. So, why do we do argumentative synthesis? Well, the first and foremost thing is, we want to be able to determine what different perspectives say about similar ideas or concepts. We also want to be able to derive similarities as well as differences from those varying perspectives. So, this goes outside of the academic realm, where if you're dealing with some sort of interpersonal conflict, or if you're in some sort of position of power or management and you have to come up with a solution to a problem, you're going to want to be able to listen to the many different people who are providing input or opinions or solutions to this problem. You're going to have to listen to what they say and see how they compare and contrast in order to make an effective and well thought out decision. And adding on to that, you want to make sure to be able to make these areas of comparison useful for the purpose of taking action. So, argumentative synthesis is not just seeing what is similar and what's different. It's not just putting things in categories, but it's being able to take action on those things, to come up with a plan of action, an idea, or a synthesis on what to do about that problem or what new perspective to create. To come up with a solution that takes the most commonly shared ideas and forms a compromise based on them. Again, building off of that, the notion of forming a compromise based upon shared ideas is integral from things from interpersonal conflicts to business management on many different levels. So, and again, this is the last video of the year. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Once again, my email, rran0001@kctcs.edu. These multimedia projects are opportunities to not only think critically about readings that you've liked or topics that you like, but also have fun with the layout and the design of it. So, again, please let me know if you have any questions, and good luck to everyone on the project.